The temperature on Cryon 7 was minus 83 degrees Celsius, and it was still dropping. Commander Kale Veyron stood at the observation post, his breath fogging the reinforced viewport as he watched 53 cadets struggle across the frozen tundra below. They were the best of the Galactic Academy's Class 7 Valorians with their crystalline nervous systems, Dracthari with their triple-insulated muscle tissue, and a handful of Yearmen whose species had evolved on gas giants. Every one of them was suffering. Every one of them except Cadet Mara Ellison. "She's been out there for 6 hours," said Lieutenant Pren, Veyron's Valorian adjutant, his blue-tinged fingers tapping a datapad nervously. "All other cadets have either activated their emergency beacons or are showing critical hypothermia readings." "Cadet Ellison's vitals, Commander, look at her vitals." Veyron had been looking. He'd been looking for the past 3 hours, unable to stop. Mara Ellison's core temperature was elevated. Not dangerously. Just elevated. Like someone who had been doing moderate exercise on a pleasant afternoon. Down on the ice shelf, Mara was annoyed. Not at the cold. The cold was fine. She'd grown up on Kepler 9b, which the rest of the galaxy had taken one look at before unanimously classifying as a Class 9 Deathworld and leaving well enough alone. The kind of planet where the megafauna ate the apex predators for sport, where the weather systems were considered by xenometeorologists to be maliciously creative, and where the colonists, stubborn, impossible, human colonists, had been living for 3 generations because apparently no one had told them they were supposed to die. No, Mara was annoyed because Cadet 3rd Rank Dorvix, a Dracthari standing 2.5 meters tall with scales that had evolved to withstand volcanic environments, was sitting down in the snow and weeping softly. "Get up," she said. I cannot," Dorvix managed, his massive frame shivering in a way that looked structurally wrong. "My secondary heat regulation system has failed. My primary is at 40%. I am a warrior caste Dracthari, Ellison. We do not freeze. You're about to." She grabbed his arm. "Get up." He looked at her with enormous amber eyes full of misery and something that was beginning to look like awe. "How are you functioning?" Mara shrugged. "My planet tried to kill me every day from birth. This," she gestured at the vast, howling white expanse of Cryon 7's tundra, at the wind that was cutting like a plasma cutter through everything it touched, at the frost that had turned Dorvix's scales an alarming shade of pale, "this is just cold." She hauled him upright. He weighed approximately 400 kilograms. She grunted, adjusted her grip, and hauled harder. He stood. "You must show me how you do this," he said, falling into step beside her, his legs unsteady. "You're already doing it," she said. "You're walking." Veyron pulled up her file for the 14th time. Ellison, Mara. Age, 19. Homeworld, Kepler 9b, Class 9 Deathworld designation. Primary Cadet Track, Tactical Operations. Secondary, Survival and Extraction. Her entrance assessment scores were attached. The board had flagged them with a note that read, "Results appear to contain data entry errors. Please verify." They had not contained data entry errors. The board had simply refused to believe that any humanoid organism, a human, no less, could have achieved those scores in the physical and endurance categories. The psychological profile was the part that fascinated Veyron most. The evaluator had written, with evident bewilderment, "Subject displays no anxiety response to high-threat simulations." When asked to explain this, subject stated, "I just figure if I was supposed to die, I'd have died back home. Everything since then is extra." Veyron had read that line so many times he'd memorized it. "Everything since then is extra." "She's moving toward the northern waypoint," Pren reported. "She's also sir. She appears to be carrying Cadet Dorvix." "Carrying him?" "Assisting him, I should say. He is ambulatory, but she is..." Pren paused, squinting at the display. "She is also pulling Cadet Tivesh's emergency sled." Cadet Tivsh appears to have activated her beacon and then been talked out of the extraction by Cadet Ellison. Veyron closed his eyes briefly. Of course she did. 3 hours later, Mara walked into the northern waypoint shelter with 4 cadets behind her. Not all 4 were moving under their own power entirely, but they were moving. Dorvix. Tivsh, a slight yeoman who'd gone rigid with cold. A Valorian cadet named Sale who had a twisted ankle and had been conducting a quiet, private surrender to hypothermia when Mara found him. And Cadet Horath, who had been fine, actually, until he'd seen Mara and decided that following her was statistically the most logical survival strategy available. He wasn't wrong. The shelter's warming systems kicked on. Mara sat down on a bench, pulled off her ice-crusted outer layer, and drank from her water canteen with the focused, practical contentment of someone who had accomplished a manageable task. "You're warm," Tivsh said, staring at her from inside a thermal blanket. It was somewhere between accusation and disbelief. "Mostly," Mara said. "My fingers are a bit numb." She held them up. "See? Still useful though." "How?" Sale demanded. He was wrapped in 2 blankets and was still shivering. "How are you like this?" Mara thought about it. Genuinely tried to find an answer that would mean something to them. "When I was 7, she said, we had a cold season. Kepler 9b gets them every 15 years. Global temperature drops about 60 degrees. The predators," she paused. "You know what, the details aren't important. The point is, my parents sat me and my brother down and taught us how to build a fire with wet wood in a storm. Taught us how to share body heat. Taught us how to keep moving even when your brain is screaming at you to stop." She looked at her hands, flexed them. "I've been cold before. Real cold. And here I am." The shelter was quiet for a moment. "What is your planet like?" Dorvix asked. He sounded the way people sounded when they were trying to comprehend something that resisted comprehension. "Alive," Mara said simply. "Everything on it is very, very alive. And most of it will kill you." She finished her water. "It makes you, I don't know. It makes you understand that being alive is something you have to commit to. Every day. You wake up on Kepler 9b and you decide, I am going to survive today. And then you make it happen." Commander Veyron walked into the shelter 11 minutes later. He stood in the doorway and looked at Cadet Ellison, who looked back at him with calm brown eyes and not a shred of the nervous deference that cadets usually showed when a commander materialized in their vicinity. "Cadet Ellison," he said. "Commander Veyron," she said. "You assisted 4 cadets to the waypoint after completing the course yourself." "They were on my way." He looked at her for a long moment. The trial was designed to push cadets to their limits. To identify where those limits are. He paused. "Your biosigns indicated you were never in any danger." Mara tilted her head. "I'm always in some danger. It was manageable danger. Minus 83 degrees Celsius is manageable danger. Compared to some of the things I've managed, yes sir." She said it without arrogance. Just as simple fact, delivered the way someone might mention that they'd walked to the corner store and found it not too far. Veyron looked at the 4 cadets she'd brought in. Looked at the readings still coming through on his datapad, 47 other cadets who had been extracted, some in serious medical distress. 1 trial. Designed to be the hardest thing the Academy put cadets through in their first year. The girl from the Deathworld had called it too simple, in the way that people call things too simple when they mean this does not threaten me, but I'll help the ones it threatens. "Your scores are going in front of the Admiralty Board," he said. "For what purpose?" "I'm going to recommend they reclassify the trial parameters for human cadets from Deathworld class planets." He paused again. "They've been setting them too low." Mara looked at him for a second. Then the corner of her mouth pulled up, just slightly. "That would be appreciated, sir," she said. Outside, the temperature on Cryon 7 continued to drop. Inside, Mara Ellison finished her water and started checking on her fellow cadets, because she was warm and they were not, and that was a problem she knew how to solve. She had been raised on a world that wanted her dead. The cold of Cryon 7 wasn't a trial. It was Tuesday.